Hi everyone, welcome back to my AP Calculus class. Today I explain motion problems. You already guys learned already motion problems when you learned the derivatives last semester. But I focused on integral today, okay? Let's start. Suppose there is position function, and then this is velocity function, and this is acceleration function. You already learned this last semester. Derivative of position function is velocity function, and then derivative of velocity function is acceleration function. That's why the backwards, which means acceleration to velocity, right? To find the velocity function from acceleration function, you have to find the integral of acceleration function. Okay? And the integral of velocity function will be position function. Okay? 이 position function p of t and then velocity function vt, we usually use at for the acceleration function, right? So vt is equal to p prime of t. Derivative of position function, velocity function. That's why. So acceleration function is what? V prime of t. So that is p second derivative t. So second derivative of position function is acceleration function. That makes sense, right? So opposite ways, try to opposite ways. Okay? So use integral, right? So velocity function's derivative is at. So what about integral of at dt? Integral of at dt. That is what? Velocity function. Because derivative of velocity function is acceleration, so backward is integral, right? Integral of acceleration function should be velocity function. But in this case, you need kind of C, right? Integration constants. So you have to find the C. You need some information to find the C anyway. Same things. Integral of velocity function, that position function with C, right? With C. This is a relationship between position, velocity, acceleration. And I'm going to explain the more important thing. So what does it mean integral a to b vt dt? It is a definite integration, right? I'm not talking about indefinite integration. What about definite integral a to b vt dt? That means net change in position. So integral a to b rate, any rate dt, that means net change in position, net change in the original function. All right, in the other words, we call this displacement, right? We call it displacement. Displacement from t equals a to t equals b, right? Displacement from t equals a to t equals b. Sometimes AP exam asks you not displacement, but travel the distance. So how can you find the distance? Distance is integral a to b absolute value of vt dt. What does it mean? Absolute value of velocity is speed, kind of speed, right? Because distance should be always positive. Sometimes displacements can be negative. If the particle moving to the left or moving the backwards, that means negative displacement. But actually, traveled distance is not negative number. That's supposed to be always positive. That's why you put the absolute value. If the position and velocity function graph is above the t-axis, that is positive velocity, right? In that case, displacement is positive, right? In that case, displacement is equal to distance. But what if the velocity function or part of velocity function is under the t-axis? Negative velocity means the particle moving backward, which means it will have negative displacement, right? In that case, you have to change the negative sign to positive sign to find the actual traveled distance. Okay, I explain this concept with 3 example problems from now. Let's go. Example 1 is here. If a body moves along a straight line with velocity v equals t cubed plus 3t squared, find the distance traveled between t equals 1 and t equals 4. At first, I will try to draw this function graph. This is t-axis, is v-axis. I try to find the zeros of this function by factoring. So common factor is t squared, and then t plus 3. So 0 and negative 3 is the zeros, right? Negative 3 is here, 0 is here. So these 2 points, 0. But multiplicity of negative 3 is 1, 0's multiplicity is 2. That means the graph should be path and tangent. Keep going up. It's a cubic function, right? And they're going to find that 1 to 4. This is 1 is here, 4, suppose 4 is here. The integral from 1 to 4, this area, right? That is displacement from t equals 1 to t equals 4, but this case, velocity function is above the t-axis, so displacement is positive, which means that displacement is equal to traveled distance. To find the traveled distance, just find this integration value, integral 1 to 4. T cubed 3t squared dt. So, by the power 1 over n plus 1 times x to the n plus 1 powers, 1 over 4t to the 4th plus t cubed from 1 to 4, plug in 4 and minus plug in 1, right? If you find this, 507 over 4. This is the final answer of example 1. In this case, the graph of velocity function is above the t-axis, so displacement is equal to traveled distance. But I believe that number 2 is different. Example 2 is different. Okay? Let me explain example 2. A particle moves along x-axis so that its velocity at time t is given by vt is equal to 6t squared minus 18t plus 12. A, find that total distance covered between t equals 0 and t equals 4. I want to draw the graph to know which part of the velocity function graph is above the axis and then all below the x-axis. I'm going to factor this. T squared minus 3t plus 2. So t minus 1 times t minus 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So I will draw velocity versus time graph. 1 is here. 2 is here. You know, find 0 to 4. 3 and 4 here. 4 here. And then graph is parabola, right? So something looks like this. Yep, a little ugly, but it is okay. Look at 0 to 1 first. That area, 0 to 1, that area is positive. The velocity function graph is above the x-axis. So that displacement is distance, same thing. But what about second part, 1 to 2? This part is what? Negative, right? Negative displacement. But to find the traveled distance, we have to change that negative displacement to positive, right? What about 2 to 4? 4 is here. That that is still positive because the graph is above the x-axis. So equation is just to find that actually travel the distance from 0 to 1, vt dt, that's positive, so it's okay. And then second part from 1 to 2, vt dt, that is a displacement from 1 to 2. That will be negative, so we have to change it negative to positive. So I'll put negative sign in front of that equation to change to positive, right? Then what about 2 to 4? Vt dt, that is already positive, so it's still positive. Just calculate these three different definite integration and then calculate it. So first part, this parts here. Integral 0 to 1 vt dt. What is the integral of vt dt? That means the integral of this function, right? So 6 times 1/3 t cubed, 2t cubed, minus 9t squared plus 12t from 0 to 1 is equal to 2 minus 9 plus 12, 14 minus, that's 5. That's 5. So this part is 5. What about second part? Integral 1 to 2. Same function, 2t cubed minus 9 t squared plus 12 t 1 to 2. Plug in 2 first. 2 cubed is 8 and then 16 minus 2 squared is 4. 4 times 9, 36 plus 24. It is 40 minus 36. So 4, is 4 minus, I'm sorry, that part is plug in 2, right? Minus plug in 1, that was 5. So 4 minus 5 is negative 1. That area is negative 1. The integration is negative 1. Then third part, from 4 to 2, so you can use the same function, 2t cubed minus 9t squared plus 12t from 2 to 4. It's a very big number. If you plug in 4, then 4 cubed times 2. So 4 times 4 times 4 times 2. It is 128 minus 4 squared is 16 times 9, 144. Plus 4 times 12 is 48. So 128 plus 48 minus 144. 32. This part is 32. And minus plug in 2. When we plug in 2, where did plug into here, right? There was 4, right? 40 minus 30, that was 4. So 32 minus 4 is what? 28. And then this is negative displacement. But it asks you what? Distance. So change to positive 1, right? So just add those numbers 5 plus 1. 5 plus 1 plus 28 is 34. 34. So answer is what? 34. That is actually travel the distance from 0 to 4. What about displacement? For the displacement, just you find 0 to 4 VTD. That's it. The automatic calculate plus and minus. But we know already the numbers, right? Is 5. There was negative 1, right? Don't change negative 1 to positive 1, and then 28. So it is 32. 32. The displacement is 32. Or you can directly find that using the same function, 2t cubed minus 9t squared plus 12t from 0 to 4. If you plug in 4 times 4 times 64 times 128 minus 144 plus 48 minus 0, right? So it's 128 plus 48, 176. 176 minus 144, 32. Yep, same answers anyway, right? So integral 0 to 4 vt dt, that is displacement for 4 seconds. Okay, to find the traveled distance, we have to separate into 3 different areas because 0 to 1 is positive, 1 to 2 is going to be negative, 2 to 4 is positive. To find that displacement each section and then change all positive and then add them up. You got it, right? Okay, last example today, example 3. The acceleration is given. An object moving on the line is given at time t, a equals sine t. Okay, question is distance, actual travel distance from 0 to 5 pi over 6. To find it, we have to know the velocity function first because integral a to b vt dt, absolute value of that is actual distance, right? So I want to find the vt is what? Integral at dt, sine t dt. Integral of sine negative cosine, and then plus c, that's velocity function. But when t equals 0, object is at rest. But at t equals 0, v should be 0. So I'm going to plug in 0 for t, and then post be 0. Cosine 0 is 1, so negative 1 plus c is 0. That means c equals 1. C equals 1. So vt function finally found it, negative cosine t plus 1. Because cosine function is between negative 1 and 1, negative cosine t is still between negative 1 and 1, and then plus 1. That cannot be negative number anyway. So vt function has no any part under the x-axis, under the t-axis in this case. So that means displacement is distance, same thing, right? Just find integral 0 to 5 pi over 5 pi over 6 negative cosine t plus 1 dt. Integral of cosine is sine, so negative sine t. Any numbers, integral is the number times t, right? So 1t, that means t from 0 to 5 pi over 6. Plug in 5 pi over 6 for t. Negative 1/2, because sine 5 pi over 6 is 1/2, plus 5 pi over 6 minus sine 0 is 0, so 0. So final answer is what? 5 pi over 6 minus 1/2 is the final answer. Okay, thank you so much watch my video. Please click subscribe and like, and then turn on the notification. I keep posting, okay, good video. I try to make a better video for you guys. Thank you again. Bye-bye.